Hi, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. Jessica McCabe, my wonderful friend and colleague from How to ADHD, and I just love the way she turns it into a verb, How to ADHD, is joining us today for another special episode. They're always special when we have Jessica, sponsored by our wonderful sponsor, Landmark College in Putney, Vermont. The college of choice for students who learn differently, and it truly is that. I had lunch the other day with the man who runs Landmark, the school version, and he founded Landmark College many years ago, and he was talking about what a great place it is. So it really is a very special place for students who learn differently. Well, so thank you again, as always, for joining us, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
So I understand today we're going to be talking about self-care, but you are more specific than that. You call it brain care, which I think is wonderfully accurate and typically creative of someone who has ADD. So what would you like to tell us?
Thanks. Yeah, I decided to call it that because self-care sounds like something you do when you don't have 3 tests, 1 project, and 8 assignments due this week, right? That sounds like something you just don't have time for when you're a college student or, frankly, a YouTuber. Having a YouTube channel is a lot like being in college. A lot gets thrown at you last minute. There's constant pressure of deadlines, fear of failure, actual failure. There's just so much going on. We talked a little bit about that in the episode about overwhelm, but it affects our ability to take care of ourselves as well because it just feels like there's no time.
Yes.
You, Dr. Hallowell, you gave me a great piece of advice once, which is that your body will tell you what it needs, right? It'll tell you when you need to sleep. It'll tell you when you need to eat. And for ADHD brains, that's great because otherwise we will just keep going. We like to work. We like to do things.
Right.
But college students and, frankly, YouTubers are used to ignoring that signal when our brain tells us, like, hey, it's time to sleep because there's so much to do. So I think it's important to understand that if we're going to ask a lot of our brains, we need to give our brains the support that they need. You wouldn't hire an employee for a job and then as the business gets busier, start taking away everything that helps that employee do the job, right? Your business would not go well, and at some point that employee would probably be like, I'm not doing this anymore. These conditions are ridiculous, and just stop working. Well, guess what our brains do? Right? This is like, I'm talking from personal experience. So you stay up late to get everything done. The next day it's hard to focus. So things take longer. So you stay up late to get everything done. And the next day you're so exhausted and stressed out that your brain just shuts down. And you have a meltdown. It takes a few hours of like crying or procrastinating or whatever to get back on track. And you're right back to not having enough time to sleep. So it's this cycle that we get into. And it's so easy. And this procrastination, staying up late, not taking care of ourselves cycle, I think starts as early as high school or maybe even earlier. So by the time we get to college, it's just second nature, right? And we normalize it and sometimes even glorify it, right? To our friends, we're like, oh my gosh, I barely slept last night. You? And they're like, yeah, I only got 2 hours. I was lucky. Kathy only got 1, but last night I had 4 cookies for dinner, so I should probably eat some real food. And this is a normal conversation that college students have. So I think it's important to try and shift that, but also to realize, like, it's not realistic to ask a college student to make sure you get 8 hours of sleep and work out every day and drink plenty of water. And, there's just, like, it's chaos, right? Like, you're in a new environment. Everything is just insane. Like, you're getting assignments and tests and social events, and social media is just being thrown at you. So you're basically trying to survive, right? Like, you're in survival mode. So I think it's important to probably start small and to start to recognize and prioritize the kinds of self-care that are really important for your brain to do what it is you're trying to accomplish. If you already know what that is, great. Like, maybe you can go all week on 4 hours of sleep, never meditate, eat pizza, and be fine. But if you miss your morning runs, it all goes to pieces. So, okay, so that's your priority, right? Start there. No matter what, you go for your morning run. If you don't know where to start, there are some kinds of self-care that research has shown is especially important for ADHD brains. It's important for everybody, but it affects ADHD symptoms. So according to research, the most important things that seem to affect our ADHD symptoms are getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise, eating well, meditating and making sure that we're getting our medication or supplements, whatever we're using to support our brains. So sleep, I talked about this in the episode about study tips, but sleep is actually more important than studying, which I think is really important for college students to know, because it can feel like you're doing the right thing when you pull an all-nighter to study, but you're not. And the reason is your brain consolidates memories while you sleep. So it is really like a study session you don't have to be there for. You are not wasting time if you sleep. You are helping your brain learn. And since college is nothing but learning, sleep is especially important for college students. It's not something you should be like proud of yourself that you only got 2 hours of sleep last night. So although that is impressive.
You're basically studying while you sleep. Your brain is consolidating the material that you took in when you were studying.
Exactly. So sleep is not the waste of time that we tend to assume it is. And the other thing is
just the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually really beneficial to the learning process. It's vital. And not getting enough sleep also makes ADHD symptoms worse. So you're going to have a harder time focusing, remembering stuff, and honestly, not having meltdowns in the middle of campus if you don't get enough sleep.
That's exactly right. You also mentioned exercise.
Yeah, exercise produces the same neurotransmitters ADHD medication does to help us focus, so it can be really helpful to exercise, especially on days you know are going to be really demanding on your brain. So it's counterintuitive, right? You've got a big test that day, like you're like, well, that's not the day to go to the gym or do yoga, but it's actually the perfect day to do that, because for an hour or two after you exercise, your focus is going to improve. It's also going to reduce your stress, your anxiety, which will also help you do better on the test. So even though it might feel like I don't have time for this, you're going to be more effective if you take the time to go and work out, to go and move your body.
And you don't have to go to the gym to do it.
Right, yeah, not at all. I mean, make yourself late to class and run to class. That'll help.
That's
not advocating being late to class, but honestly, like, I think that actually helped me when I was in college. Just racing across campus was enough to get my brain a little more engaged, and so I actually did better when I was late because of that.
That's a great
not
one.
recommending that,
one.
But
yeah, you just run to class, and you'll arrive at class in a very good mentally in a very good state.
Sure, especially if it's way the heck across campus. According to research, the best kind of exercise to help us with our focus is moderate to high intensity cardio. So running is great. Ideally, you want to get like 30 to 60 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. Again, I get it. You're in college. You're incredibly busy. That is maybe not going to happen, but it's good to start somewhere.
Well, another one would just be to ride a bicycle around campus. You can combine the necessity of getting from one place to another with exercise, and a bicycle is a real good example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you get to class maybe half an hour early and you want to review your notes, maybe walk around campus reviewing your notes instead of doing it at your desk. That's another good way to support your brain.
Okay, what's your next brain care tip for us, Jessica?
So the next one is kind of complicated, and the research is new on this. It's also something that's hard to research, but they really are coming out with a lot of research saying that diet does impact our brains. Dr. Joel Nigg just came out with a book called Getting Ahead of ADHD, copyright 2017, and he has some great information on how diet affects people with ADHD. It is different for everybody. I know that some people might be sensitive to certain, food coloring. Some people might have sensitivities to gluten. Like some people do great with carbs. Like it really depends on the individual brain. So it's hard to give any solid recommendations there. It's just from person to person. But I would say as a college student, just start to notice if there are certain things that you eat and you feel better, you feel energized, and certain things that make you feel more sluggish or make it harder to focus. Keeping track somehow, like keeping like a little food diary, like I actually did this in college. Like, what did I eat today and how did I feel? Like, how were my symptoms? And if you keep track of that over a couple of weeks, you start to kind of see some patterns, and you can maybe make small changes. Like, maybe instead of ice cream after class, like I go and get a protein shake or whatever. Again, I don't want to get too much into it because it really does differ from person to person, and the research on this is pretty mixed and new, but it's worth mentioning because it can have a huge impact for some people with ADHD, is just to pay attention to what you eat.
Well, you can be your own experimental animal, see what nutritional changes work best for you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I would be a little bit careful of confirmation bias. Like if people have told you, sugar makes you hyperactive, so you think that it's making you hyperactive, like that's actually not the case. Like research has shown that sugar doesn't make kids hyperactive at all. It's just kind of a confirmation bias thing where we were told that, and then we see a kid in a situation where, it's a birthday party and they're bouncing off the walls. You go, oh, they just ate cake. It's the sugar that's making them do that. No, it's probably, the excitement. Their friends are there, lots of presents and things like that. It's exciting, so they're more energetic than usual. But yeah, it's a good idea to track it on paper rather than in your head, so that like, oh, okay, I can start to recognize patterns in how what I eat seems to affect me, as opposed to like you only notice when you take a test and you do badly that you had pizza that day, but maybe most of the time eating pizza is fine for you or whatever it is. So yeah, I think tracking it is a really good idea. And then the other really important thing is your medication and supplements. If you take medication, make sure you make that appointment, go to your doctor, get that prescription filled. These things can be really challenging for ADHD brains. It's a lot to remember. And I have absolutely been guilty of, I have 2 pills left, and now I have to try and get an appointment and get a new prescription. Try to make your appointment with your doctor the day that you go. Make the next one. Go right from the doctor to fill your prescription. Make sure that whatever medications you're taking you have available. Make sure that if you are spending the night at a friend's house that night, you bring your medication with you. Try and take it at the same time every day. This can make a huge difference for people with ADHD.
Then, of course, remembering to take the medication. My patients often say to me, how am I supposed to remember to take the pill that's supposed to help me to remember to take the pill?
Yeah, exactly.
And so remembering to take your medication.
Right. So, Dr. Hallowell, what do you suggest? Because I actually get that question a lot. So what do you suggest to help people remember to take their meds?
Well, you want to establish a routine. And so I say, everyone brushes their teeth, so put your pill bottle next to your toothbrush. Or, everybody, if you have a time when you have lunch, put your pill bottle next to your lunch. Or set your alarm watch, or if you're an adult, tell your administrative assistant to remind you to do it. There's no harm in sharing the responsibility with other people, asking people to remind you to do things. But the more you can make it a habit, as you mentioned earlier, the power of habits, to do your thinking for you, then it becomes on automatic pilot. Just like you don't have to think, oh, I have to brush my teeth this morning. You do it automatically. And if the pill bottle is sitting right there, then it's an instant reminder to take your pill.
Right. So what do you do? Because I actually get this question, and I've been in this situation. What do you do if you aren't sure if you took it? Like you went, okay, I'm going to take my medication, and you went to take your medication, but you're not sure if you actually opened the bottle, got the pill out, and took it. And you stare in horror at this bottle going, what do I do?
But fortunately, there's no great danger in taking a second one. So if you feel a little bit foggy, if you feel as if you haven't taken it, then just go ahead and take it. And if you have already taken it and you take another one, you may get a little jittery, your heart may beat a little bit faster, but it's not like you're, exposing yourself to grave danger if you do that. So you can sort of do a self-assessment. Do I feel as if I've taken it or not? And if you think you probably haven't, then go ahead and take it.
So just wait like half an hour, and see if it kicks in. And if you're still feeling like you didn't take it, then just take another one. That's good to know.
Yeah. Fortunately, these meds are not. If you take the whole bottle, that's dangerous. But if you take an extra one, that's not going to do you any great harm.
That's really good to know, because I live in mortal fear of this situation.
Well, it's good that you're respectful of the meds, but you don't have to be afraid of them. They're taking an extra one. I don't recommend it, because it is a stress, but it's not particularly dangerous.
That's good to know. My viewers will be happy to hear that. It is the one question that I don't answer because I am not a doctor, so it's nice to have you answer that. Yes. But I just want to do a disclaimer about these brain care tips, which is I get it, right? College is incredibly busy, especially if you're also trying to hold down a job or a relationship or, I don't know, like maintain friendships. So don't beat yourself up if you're struggling to do the things everyone keeps telling you should do. I know it's not that easy, right? There is a huge difference between knowing what to do and actually being able to do it. So a good way to start moving towards some sort of self-care is to try tracking your activities and symptoms for a couple of weeks and then look at that and decide on one small pattern you want to change. This is something that Landmark recommended that I completely agree with. Right now, I'm accepting that life is pretty chaotic, but again, no matter what, I meditate for 20 minutes as soon as I wake up. I would like to have a lot more things. Thank you. I would like to have a lot more things in my routine. I want to make sure that I'm exercising every day and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But I know myself, I know my brain, and I know that trying to do too much at once is going to be overwhelming. And as soon as life gets busy, I'm going to stop doing all of it. So I'm just building that one routine right now. Every morning as soon as I wake up, I meditate for 20 minutes. Oh, which, actually, I didn't talk about meditation. That's one of the tips is meditation. And this is something that's scary for a lot of people with ADHD because they're like, sitting still and not having a million thoughts in my brain is not my strong suit. And I get it. But precisely because it's something we struggle with, it's important to try to practice that. And if you want, there are apps that can help. There's an app called Headspace. There's an app called Calm that will walk you through it. You don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to be alone with your thoughts. Somebody will walk you through kind of a mindfulness meditation, which can be particularly beneficial for people with ADHD. And you don't have to sit there for 3 hours like a Zen monk either. I do 20 minutes, but it's something I worked up to. You start with maybe 5. You start with whatever you can do, and even 5 minutes can make a huge difference in just our ability to be present and mindful. And in our body, which can help with, we talked last episode about overwhelm. It can help enormously with overwhelm. I notice a huge difference on days that I meditate versus days that I don't meditate in terms of how overwhelmed I am and how able I am to manage everything that comes at me through the day.
Yeah. Well, Jessica, we're up against the clock, and I could talk to you all afternoon. You're a wonderful guest, and you're a font not only of knowledge, but of positive energy. You just are a wonderfully, positively energetic person, and I just love that about you. Thank you so much. Wish we had more time, but we certainly packed a lot in. And thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's wonderful having you. You're going to be a regular on Distraction. And thanks so much to our sponsor, the wonderful Landmark College up in the beautiful Putney, Vermont, home of the Landmark College Institute for Research and Training, working to discover innovative strategies and practices to improve teaching and learning in the field of learning disabilities. For more information, go to their website, which is lcdistraction.org, to learn more. Thank you so much for joining us today. To hear more from Jessica, go to her wonderful website, howtoadhd.com. She's such a talented and just ebullient person. It's a wonderful presence, a wonderful website. I look forward very much to speaking with you again, Jessica.
Yeah, me too. This is so fun.
All right. Thanks a lot. And listeners, thank you. And please send us your comments, your questions. We are eager to hear from you, respond to you. We're building a community. It's growing all the time. And as you know, my diagnosis of what's wrong with the world is the problem of disconnection, people not feeling a part of something larger than themselves that's positive. And one way to create connection is through the community we're building. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating. And look forward to joining you again on the next podcast of Distraction. This is Dr. Ned Hallowell saying goodbye for now.